I've been trying to get on board Coral Princess since she first arrived in Australia in June this year. I even had one booking that I had to cancel because of a date clash. However, I did eventually settle on a cruise, a 3-night repositioning voyage from Brisbane to Sydney, departing on Friday, August 19th. But I'm not going to be on board that departure. I'll tell you more about that now. So as I was saying, I booked a cruise on board Coral Princess, Friday, August 19th. 1 month beforehand, I received an invitation from P&O Cruises to join them on their activation cruise for the Pacific Encounter, departing Thursday, August 18th. I was tossing up whether to do it or not for a couple of days, and eventually I decided that I really couldn't pass up the opportunity to get on board Encounter. So I was able to actually submit a deviation request through Princess, and I will be boarding the Coral Princess on Sunday in Newcastle. That's 1 day in port for 1 night on board that ship. So instead of a 3-night cruise on board Coral Princess, I will get a 2-night cruise on board Pacific Encounter, 1 night of accommodation in Newcastle, and a 1-night cruise on board Coral Princess. So you can follow along as I depart Sydney on one ship and return to Sydney a few days later on another. The good thing about the overseas passenger terminal is that you can just catch the train directly into Circular Quay. It's very convenient once you're here just to walk right across to the ship. Even on a cloudy morning, there's nothing quite as good as seeing your waiting cruise ship up close. The overseas passenger terminal is where most cruise ships dock when they visit Sydney. A small number can sail safely under the harbour bridge and over to White Bay, but as ships continue to grow, that number will only dwindle. We're about half an hour before our check-in time and thought we would just see if we could make it in, but no, we have to come back in half an hour, but perfect opportunity to check out the ship up close. It's time to walk on board the ship now. Depending on your boarding time, you can't always go straight to your stateroom. As this was the first voyage with passengers though, I was able to head straight over to check out Pacific Encounter's mini suite. I'm officially on board Pacific Encounter, and for this particular cruise we were given a mini suite, which I was very happy with, very excited about. I didn't expect that, so I've just finished filming a room tour of this room and I'll be bringing that to my YouTube channel soon. It might already be there by the time you watch this. And I'm about to go now, head out and start filming this ship so that I can get that tour to you very quickly. Let's go. I was immediately impressed with the style and design of Pacific Encounter's public spaces. I'd sailed on this ship as the Star Princess in 2015 and am familiar with sister ship Golden Princess, now the Pacific Adventure, so the changes were very obvious, to put it mildly. If you haven't watched my ship tour yet, you can find it on my channel. I've been filming a ship tour and walked mostly through deck 7, 6 and 5, but decided it was time for a bit of a break. Camera needs a charge and I do too, so it's lunchtime in the waterfront and something extra special. After a brief break, it was time to move to the upper decks and continue filming. Ship tour is about 90% filmed at this point, so I think it's time to call it a day or an afternoon and go to the Oasis and get ready for sail away, which is actually happening in about 1 hour's time.
If you hear this signal during the cruise, you should return to your stateroom, collect your life jacket, warm clothing, including a head covering, and any medications that you take, and go to your muster station.
If there had to be one good thing to come out of COVID, I would suggest the new muster drill process is it. Very soon after the drill, it was time to sail away from Sydney's spectacular harbour. I've sailed from Sydney more times than I can properly count, and for me, the view just never gets old. On all of P&O's ships, the Oasis is the perfect spot to soak in the views. Tonight's dinner is at Dragon Lady, one of the included main dining venues. I didn't have the best experience here on Explorer, nothing bad, it just wasn't my favourite, so I was looking forward to giving it another go. I always admire the way P&O create these distinct dining venues with their own personality and style. The menu at Dragon Lady has a bit of a modern twist, and the food is fresh and well presented. We opted for the rice paper rolls and curry buttered prawn bao for the entree. For the main course, we chose the tofu, garlic fried rice, calamari and green curry chicken. Chai flavoured ice cream and Chinese 5-spice chocolate pudding finished off a tasty meal. After dinner, it was hard to resist checking out the brand new nightclub Altitude. Perched high on deck 18, there's even an escalator to whisk you up to the dance floor. Being the first night on board, I expected a good atmosphere, and we got exactly that. The DJ let loose, and so did everyone on the dance floor. I'm usually an early bird, except instead of worms, well, I prefer coffee. This morning though, I had work to do. I knew I couldn't enjoy anything else until I finished recording the ship tour, so it was up and out. I have finished recording the tour, so everything is done, and I'm now going to get a very needed coffee from the Avalon Cafe on deck 5, which is what P&O call the lobby, because that's where they have like a little bit of a hotel vibe. You'll see. The atrium on board Pacific Encounter is such a cozy and inviting space. It actually makes you want to linger. Right now I had one thing and one thing only on my mind. The Avalon Cafe is a new addition for P&O, operating specifically as a cafe and food outlet. Unlike Pacific Explorer, that leaves Charlie's Bar to function exclusively as a bar venue. As good as the pastries in the window looked, I was apparently too early. Maybe next time. Coffee's in hand. Time to go sleep, I think. No, not really. I'm not sure what I'll be doing actually. Not yet. What else do you do when you don't know what to do on a cruise? Eat! It was time for breakfast, and this morning we decided to go to the waterfront. I really like the breakfast menu. There's a lot on offer, including a city favourite, smashed avo. I decided to go for the Eggs Benedict. Just had breakfast in the waterfront dining room, which was really tasty as always. They have a great menu in there. It doesn't really change from cruise to cruise, but there's a lot on it, and it's very easy to find something that you'll like. And they definitely do a good job with their poached eggs, as I've said before, and it's no different on this ship. Just having a little walk around on the promenade deck, because it is one of my favourite things to do on a sea day, just to enjoy the sight, smell, sound of the ocean. After my morning stroll, it was time to edit the ship tour. Back to the room, I managed to get a few hours of editing out of the way, and well, would you look at that, it was time for lunch. 400 Gradi is one of the specialty dining venues on board Encounter. You can book a table via the P&O app when on board, or do as I did and just walk in and hope for the best. The menu is small but full of delicious starters, pizzas and pastas. Plus, Nutella pizza is available for dessert, though we didn't indulge in that this time. After lunch, it was time for a stroll around to capture some more footage and photos of the ship, and knowing it was already the last night of this short cruise, I decided it was time to indulge in a little R&R. Just a deck chair with a wake view and a cocktail. Or two. As night fell, both the Sky and the Oasis pool put on a bit of a colour show. By this time, the Coral Princess had departed its berth in Brisbane and begun its 3-night journey to Sydney. I knew that we would cross paths at some point tonight, and I wondered if I would be able to see the ship I was supposed to be on from the ship that I was on. Tonight's dinner was at Angelo's, and in retrospect, I could have probably chosen a different venue considering what was for lunch. Hey Sophia. I just find it too hard to pass up dinner at Angelo's. Not only is the service terrific, I enjoy the menu. The potato soup is my go-to starter, but the antipasta plate is hard to ignore. The The chicken parmigiana was a hearty, tasty main meal, as was the roasted pumpkin cappellacci. Of course, dessert is something very difficult to pass up on a cruise, especially when they're this tasty. Tonight, we were invited to view the brand new adults-only show for P&O, Blanc de Blanc Uncorked. Held in the Black Circus Theatre, I enjoyed this show a lot more than Purple Rabbit, which I watched a few months ago on board Pacific Explorer. While Purple Rabbit was entertaining and mildly confusing, I found this show to be quite funny and maybe somewhat similar to burlesque. I would say it's $20 well spent. I didn't film any of the production itself, though I was able to capture the cast after the show concluded. They really were all fantastic. Incredibly tired by this point, but hopeful of spotting the Coral Princess in the distance, I went up on deck and straight over to the Byron Beach Club to check it out after dark. The entire space was illuminated in this illustrious purple glow, and the Byron Beach pool looked inviting, even despite the cold on deck. It was after midnight by this point, and a movie was still playing on the big screen at the midship pool. Walking down to check it out, the aroma of freshly baked pizza was too hard to ignore, and well, in the name of research, of course, I had no choice but to try something from the brand new Gradi Pronto. Well, maybe two somethings. We didn't have any success in spying the Coral Princess from the Pacific Encounter, and by this stage it was very late. I knew the next day was going to be a big one, so it was off to bed. My plans for the next morning centered around finishing off the Pacific Encounter ship tour, and then it would be off on my first ever Qantas Link flight. Well, the 2-night activation cruise has just come to an end. We've docked in Brisbane and we're about to head off and get on board a shuttle to take us to the airport for the next part of this trip, which is going to involve a regional flight to Newcastle, a 1-night stay in Newcastle, and then I'll be joining the Coral Princess tomorrow, the ship that I've been trying to get on since May this year, but we're finally at the point where I can say it's almost here. Join me next time for an overnight trip to Newcastle and we finally meet the Coral Princess. I've been trying to get on board Coral Princess since I've been trying to get on board, and for one reason or another, I could never quite make the dates work. I even attempted to book a cruise. No, that's not true. I did book a cruise.